begin to talk about this? Well, I was going to begin with the underwear scene because I remember at the time it just caused a sensation everywhere. It just did. There were posters in high schools and colleges and all over the place. And I just wonder if, because that moment to me, when you're in your underwear, you're so vulnerable, and that thing's going to get you and you're not dressed in the spacesuit.
It's an unpleasant feeling. The thing is that we didn't really know what we were doing then at the end of the movie. We knew we had like 4 or 5 days to finish shooting the movie, and Ridley was sort of trying to figure out what should happen. And so a lot of that is just, we're sort of making it up on the spot.
Well, I had read, and I'm probably wrong, and they'll all correct me. Yes, but that he had an idea once that he wanted the alien to come and bite your head off and finish the login in your voice. Was that ever really discussed?
The one thing he discussed with me, and I think he would have tried to do this had he had more time, was that I'd be in the, where the suit is, in the little cubicle, and the alien would actually come over and peer at me through the glass and be fascinated by the fact that I was so unlike him, and that I was this pink, other-looking thing, and it was supposed to be a kind of Beauty and the Beast moment where he kind of goes, oh. And, but Fox was sort of like, so we never got a chance to do that. And I was grateful to Ridley. He understood that actors love to be surprised when we act, but we can only do so much. So he hid the alien from me. And I did not know, I knew something was going to happen, but I did not know when and where and how. And so when the arm fell out of me, I'm sure I just flew into that cubicle. And I remember I had to try on several outfits of underwear, and they were all pretty awful. This was sort of the least kind of corny one. But I didn't know they were half off when I was shooting. That is something you only realize.
So many surprises in filmmaking. Well, because that's what we, before I was accused when I brought up the chest busting John Hurt scene as an intro of committing a spoiler, except not one person in this audience hasn't seen this movie, so they know all that. But wasn't that another scene where you guys were surprised by certain elements of it?
Well, it was in the script that something came out of Kane's chest. It's not his stomach. That's what everyone thinks is coming out of your stomach. It's embedded in your lungs. I guess that's more welcoming to an alien.
So you seem to believe this now.
What?
It is science fiction.
Yeah, it's all very scientific. And there was he had a line which I loved, and his line when it came out of his chest was, "Oh, it's all one word. Oh my God." Really long, and I had T-shirts made up with that word and gave them to everyone. I'm not sure they recognized it from the script, but anyway, we went down, and Ridley and the whole crew were all dressed in these sort of ponchos. And, I'm so stupid. I didn't even go, oh, that's going to be blood. I just thought, oh, I guess it's really going to be a messy scene. And I remember seeing Dan O'Bannon and Ron Shusett, the writers of the original, which predominantly had the chestburster in it, even though the plot was quite different. And they were over in the corner wearing their ponchos, and they were kind of almost holding each other's hands going, I mean, they looked like two kids on Christmas Eve. They were so excited, and it was so dear. And so that's sort of what I remember. And actually, in the moment, John Hurt was such a brilliant actor that we sort of shot it in almost 2 takes. The first take, this special effect filled his chest, his t-shirt with blood, but it was his acting that was so frightening, and you knew something terrible was happening to him that had never happened to anyone before. And then the next thing you know, and the special effects guys are kind of underneath that table, and they have like little, kind of little rubber things they're pushing, it's like so untechy. It's like, a bunch of little hoses and things like that. I mean, nothing. And then suddenly, honestly, in the next setup, which happened very quickly after that, this thing jumped out of John Hurt's chest and ran away. And you see that master where we're all like, we're not acting. It happened so fast. It just looked real.
Well, poor Veronica Cartwright, who's Lambert, seemed to get a real squirt from that thing. It was like,
I was lucky I didn't get a squirt.
but you were there, so that's what counts. I have to go back to this time of you getting this. This is like your first big movie, and there you are from the Yale School of Drama, and your first movie is this alien movie that you couldn't know anything about. We live in a world now where everything's a sequel, and there's certainly been many and prequels to this now. But what was your reaction when you heard about it?
Well, there was a short list of actresses I think that Ridley was going to see, and I guess I was on it. But I was given the script, and so I read the script. And if you don't know what the alien is, if you don't know what the design is, it's just like this thing running around, scaring people. I didn't know what it was. It could have been a big blob of yellow jello. I mean, so you're reading this very skillful script, very economical, good characters, suspense, sort of 10 Little Indians. But, it's kind of like, until you see the designs, you don't understand that you're entering a whole new world of film, science fiction. And I didn't really know that much about science fiction. I mean, I'm so old that like science fiction to me is like Flash Gordon, stuff like that. The day the Earth stood still and and so I went to see Ridley the next day, and I'd never met him, and he's this guy in a little black leather jacket, red hair, and I said, well, what did you think of the script? And I said, well, I didn't really like it. I said, it's very bleak, and I didn't really buy the relationship. I didn't really think that the captain and this girl would actually be trying to, have sex while this thing was, anyway. He just sort of, actually, I have to credit Ridley because he actually was interested in what I had to say. I remember the casting person over in the corner was going, shut up and just, get the parts. But anyway, so Ridley whipped out all these amazing Giger and Carlo Rambaldi pictures of the alien, and I just couldn't believe what I was seeing. I'd never seen anything both so lethal looking and so beautiful at the same time. And I realized that whatever this was, a movie, but whatever it was going to be something so wild and beautiful, as well as scary. And that intrigued me because really what I was doing in New York was a lot of off-Broadway, a lot of strange plays. So to me, this was like, oh, this is off-Broadway, but in movies. And so I liked that. I thought, oh, that's where I belong anyway.
I'd like to watch the movie again now, just thinking of it as an off-Broadway play. It would be great. None of that. It's just the dialogue now. We don't see any of these things going on that we're watching. But having known Ridley Scott for a while, he's a fairly blunt individual. He's like general in an army when he needs to be to get this. So when you were so kind as to tell him what was wrong with the script, did he have a reaction that went beyond the usual?
Well, Ridley was just starting out too. He'd just done The Duelists, and so, I'm grateful because he sort of seemed semi-interested in what I was saying, and I think it is good for a director to get kind of honest feedback, from actors, like, well, this doesn't make sense, or what have you. But anyway, we got very excited looking at all the pictures, and, I felt that Ridley was just such a straight shooter. He didn't like to rehearse. He just kind of liked to throw all the elements together and let us go at it. And that was a big challenge for me because I really was only used to the theater, and almost every scene is improvised. And that's and I think it worked wonderfully for the film. But it was a brave new world for me, certainly.
Well, the last 20 minutes of this movie is you. You're running backwards, forwards, carrying a cat, a gun, and doing all this. Were you always super athletic that you were able to do this kind of thing? Because it's not CGI, it's you.
No, it is me. I'll tell you, one of the great incentives is that that they have all this fire that's going to shoot out behind you. If you don't run fast enough, they're not going to miss you, So it was all pretty down and dirty. I actually felt like a member of the crew most of the time. I was often just with them, and I just turned out to be the person in front of the camera, but I was a wreck, as you could see, and it all was just so visceral, and you just carried on with it. I never thought, I'm doing this because Ripley's in good shape, because actually you've been in hypersleep for months, you probably can hardly move. But if you're frightened enough, you can move.
You can. But here you are, you became from this movie, not just a movie star from it, but you were the first woman to be this kind of action hero in movies. And yeah. Sequel in Aliens, you became the first woman to be playing this role, nominated for an Academy Award for doing it.
Thank you for that acknowledgement. I really have to give the writers credit, Walter Hill and David Geiler. Wrote a great script, and they just thought, well, no one will ever think the girl will be the hero, so let's just have her be the survivor. And then with Jim Cameron, writing that second script, he's amazing. And so I feel like they're the fathers of Ripley, the action figure. They did me the great service and honor of just writing a great character and not making it a woman character. They just wrote the character of Ripley, and that liberated me to just play it full out. And it wasn't until after Alien that I started reading these scripts where you're really strong in one scene, and then you're like crying in the next, and you're really strong, and they can't make up their mind. Are you sympathetic or not sympathetic? So I didn't have any of that mishigas in my story.
But it's so wonderful how influential it is. To me, watching this again now, it was great to have you sitting next to me. It was great. Because, she was telling me how this is a deleted scene.
What's it doing here?
What's it doing here? That's the one where you're looking at Dallas and...
Yeah, where you see Dallas and he's covered with maggots, and that didn't make it into the first cut.
Yeah. But the influence of it, it's so much a part of the present day. I don't want to do my hashtag time's up, but it is time's up for a lot of things, but it's time's up especially for women being treated that way. And I had interviewed a lot of the women who were in Black Panther, and every one of them said this was the movie that made them believe that they could do this. So look at it, 40 years later,
awesome.
it's still happening. I want to know what that first day on the set was like for you. What happened when you actually, you discussed the script, you were talking to Ridley Scott? What did you first do? Do you remember?
I think, well, the first day, I think we got into that sort of rose petal bed thing and lay in our little suits with our little strange underwear on and woke up. I mean, I think to a certain extent it was chronological. And we were supposed to be all naked. And then at the last minute, Fox was worried that we'd lose Spain and Italy, the Catholic countries, so that's when they decided to put some things on. And I was disappointed. I was disappointed because I thought it was such a cool idea to have people in this very harsh, kind of dirty metal environment just without anything on. But now I'm so glad we have clothes on. Who knows what they would have done with those pictures?
Now no way. Yeah. But you watch this movie from a perspective of now, and you see how it works in a way that people are afraid to make movies now. It builds so that it accumulates to an effect that, we're watching who they are, we're hearing them complain about their money. They don't seem to be, they're not the elite. They're not with Captain Kirk on the Starship Enterprise. These are regular people doing this. And so it works so much when that suspense kicks in. And I'm assuming that's all part of Ridley Scott's master plan.
I think so. I mean, I remember one of the first scenes we shot was a scene in the kitchen where we wake up. And I remember thinking, that it was very hard to hear what people were saying, even in this small set. And when I saw being from the theater, I thought, what are we going to do about that? But when I saw the movie, the fact that you can't always be sure of what someone has said made it already frightening. You're like, wait, did I just miss something? It sort of already put you on edge that you were, you couldn't control the environment. And so I know we did that like the first week. But it's funny because I kept roaming around the sets. The sets were so beautiful by this Englishman named Michael Seymour, and I thought they were all built for us, the actors, to feel like we were in this other world. We had these very beautiful dashboards with all these buttons by our chairs and everything. And in the end, they never let you touch anything because they always have the camera right where, you can't put your hands on the buttons. You have to put the hands here because that's where the camera will think the buttons are. I just thought it was the funniest thing that they went to all this trouble and then they never really let us do anything except exist.
In addition to the sets and what Geiger does in terms of the design, there are more absolutely nauseating looking things happening in it. Many of them sexual, although that might just be me. I don't think so. But those sort of vaginal opening doors and it's like, so how are you all reacting to that?
It's true that was all in the pictures Ridley showed me, and he even showed me this picture of all the eggs that Kane discovers in that hold in the ship. They all had these little baby faces, so they were all like, and they were smiling because they wanted to be chosen by Kane, to be picked, So it could have been even more strange. I think Ridley has such an amazing organic sense of this story just erupting, and he had such a clear idea of, Francis Bacon, his influence, and how he wanted it shot. And one of the reasons I think it's so innovative is that Ridley was operating the camera, so was our cinematographer, Derek Van Lint, and they would we'd be in some tiny space, like as big as this chair, and they would have to figure out how to shoot it in an interesting way. And they would just figure that out and turn the camera upside down, you know. They had to just be so inventive because it was such a claustrophobic world, and we literally were in such a claustrophobic set. And I think it's really their inventiveness and their courage that makes it still such a visceral experience to be in this world that they created.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder, because when this was happening, nobody was wild about making this movie in the first place. It was, we had no budget, and then suddenly there was going to be some money, and maybe we shouldn't make it, and maybe we should, and then that little thing called Star Wars came out.
Oh, you see, you know much more about this
Really?
than I
Well,
do.
that happened. It came out, and Fox said, you know what, you can make money doing science fiction. But you did, Alien is much darker than anything in the Star Wars universe. And to make that kind of thing happen, and then you took forever to do a sequel. Was that you? Or was, because when something makes money now, the sequel is the next week.
It's already written.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I just wanted to go back to the theater. So I just went back to the theater for a couple of years. And in those days, we just didn't make sequels. If you were lucky enough to make a good movie, that was plenty, you know. And it wasn't really till David Giler and Walter Hill were interviewing Jim Cameron, who I think at that point had done Piranha 2. And he said...
Showing that next week.
Right.
Yeah.
I think he'd done Terminator, but he was interested. It was, I think, I'm not sure who pitched who, but I think it was Jim who said, I would like to write the sequel to Alien. And it wasn't something they'd really thought of to do, because he just didn't do it then. And what would you know, how would you do it? And I couldn't have been more surprised in 1985 or whatever it was. I was shooting a film in France with Gerard Depardieu when I received this script that has the character of Ripley on every single page and is this, you know, huge sort of operatic story on such a huge scale. And I thought, wow, it's funny that no one even bothered to mention this to me. But it was, you know, I think it's Jim, you know, that Jim came up with it. I should really ask him the real story behind it.
What was the difference in working with Ridley Scott and James Cameron?
Well, there are many differences. I think, you know, people say that Alien is the fun house and Aliens is the roller coaster, and that's, you know, I think that is also the difference in the two directors. Not that Ridley can't do huge worlds, but he was so committed to this this claustrophobic, nightmarish world, and that was what we had to work with. And it was almost, you know, for Jim Cameron to figure out sort of even how the creature had evolved and how it reproduced and all these other sort of scientific things that Jim loves to think about. There's a lot of their personality in each of these, and the whole military thing. You know, Jim is sort of fascinated by that, and so that's all in there too. So it is. I think all these movies are so reflective of the director making.
Which was, I mean, you've done 4 of them. I mean, the third one is David Fincher. I mean, my God, the people that have been working on that, and then Juno does Alien Red. But look what's happening to you as these scripts come to you. Okay, you're almost killed. You didn't get your head bitten off, as maybe was one plank in the first one. But then they just put you through the ringer, and in the third one they basically kill you, and in the fourth one they clone you. Each time you get that script, what are you saying? You know, what is left to happen?
Well, after the second one, I heard that they were going to do Alien versus Predator, which I hadn't read the comic books, which I'm sure are wonderful, but I thought, oh, God. I just didn't like that idea. Also, I heard that Alien doesn't win, so I really didn't. So I wanted to die because I thought, oh, this will get me out of the picture and then I'll come home and so I asked to die, and I thought I had a really beautiful death scene, and so I was very surprised to get another script and find out that they'd taken like a fingernail or something and recreated me, almost made a couple of mistakes, said things were going to happen in 4 that weren't quite Ripley-like. I was sort of intrigued by the idea of that as an actor playing these 2 different species in the same body, but no, I mean, and honestly, I don't know how Fox was thinking about this, but I never ended one and thought, and then in a few years we'll make another one. I always thought, this is it. You know, and I think that that's the only way a director can think about that. If we wanted to keep doing sequels, we wouldn't have killed Newt. You know, we wouldn't have killed Hicks.
Yes.
We would have had that go on. But Fincher killed them, that was it, and started his own thing. And in a way, I think it's very healthy for each director to kill the previous movie. And then
Move on, says the actress who is working on Avatar 2, 3, 4, and 5. Right. So what is that? Or is that happening? You know,
oh yeah, we've done 2 and 3. We're kind of, sort of, toward the end of shooting 2 and 3, and then we'll take a break, and then we'll do 4 and 5. But they're really good. They're really good. I must say, I'm huge. Every time, you know, if you have to work on something for a year and a half, you better like the script. And I'm pretty tough on scripts, but I never got tired of reading the script.
You're not the same character.
No.
What's that about? Oh, look at all that.
No, she can't talk
I
about it.
wonder if in our lifetimes we will see those movies. I keep waiting.
Actually, I don't know.
Yeah.
A lot of work still to be done.
Yeah, and there's a lot of underwater things happening.
There is a lot of underwater stuff which looks really cool.
So do you and Jim Cameron ever talk about the alien experience that you had? Or is that something that's in your past?
No, we do talk about it. I think it was really the wonderful actor who played the Colonel, you know, who wakes everyone up with the cigar
Right.
in the beginning of Aliens. I think he passed away this year.
Yeah, Apon.
So, of course we talk about it because it's sort of like something that actually happened to us, you know. That's what it feels like. And at a certain point, Neil Blomkamp had written a sequel to Aliens, which Fox wanted to do and paid Neil to write. And then Ridley Scott wanted to make his prequels first. So it was sort of put to one side, and Jim was actually has been very interested in producing that if we end up doing it. And so, yeah, it's very incestuous, all of this. You never really can get away from it.
Well, I think everybody, because you could see the reaction in the room to this, we don't really want to let Ripley go. We don't. You may want to, and go back to the theater.
I have. 4 times.
The 5th time might be the charm, too. You never can tell.
Well, I think I did. I was very touched that Neil would write a script that showed us actually what happened to Ripley and kind of gave her an ending, because after the 4th one, I felt that I didn't want to outstay our welcome, so we never made the 5th one, which was a Joss Whedon script. So it's just, you know, but it was a mutual decision, you know, I think, anyway.
But what do you learn? You looking at yourself sitting here tonight watching this, what are you thinking when you go back to that time where that was as opposed to who you are now?
I see a really
It's therapy time.
I see a beginning
Yes,
actor.
the beginning actor.
Like, for instance, the whole thing of "You Are My Lucky Star." I had been in a workshop where we all had to do these song exercises, and you had to find a place in the scene to put in a song exercise. And so at a certain point, as we were ending the movie, I went, God, I gotta get my song exercise in here. And I thought, well, this is a great idea because I need something to keep me focused. And so I can concentrate on something else besides what's actually happening. So it sort of takes me back to that time in my life where, I was still, you don't know enough as an actor to just rely on your instincts, although this is a very instinctive part. But I certainly see some of my inexperience, especially with the improvising and everything. I was over my head, but I think that really worked well for the character. She should not be comfortable, and I wasn't. So it's fine.
What have you learned in this time? Not just as an actor who's in this, but just in life experience of doing it. Is there I'm sure there's many lessons that we all learned in life, but you in being an actor and being on the screen, what have you learned over that time about how to approach what it is you do?
Well, I think that you learn as an actor to trust yourself more and more. And for me, especially, when I was in drama school, they really wanted you to work everything out ahead of time. And I really learned not to do that and sort of, fly by the seat of your pants. You do a lot of preparation, but then once you get on set, you kind of throw yourself open to whatever happens. I think what I feel watching the movie and really watching most movies that I've been in, because I don't spend a lot of time watching them, I remember the people, I remember our great crew, I remember being inside that cylinder before I see Dallas covered with maggots. I had to be 20 feet up in the air inside this cylinder, and this poor prop man had to hand the lit flamethrower down above me, and I'm about 20 feet up in the air inside the cylinder. He has to be above me, handing this thing down to me. And of course, it was on a wire, and then Ridley said, "Oh no, I can see the wire, so do it without the wire." So what you remember is all these you remember the people you shared these experiences with, and how hard they worked, and how devoted they were, and that's what moves me so much about what I get to do is the collaboration in every film. It can be a terrible film. It's still everyone worked their ass off to make it, and it's such a great business, and it's such a family, and I just feel so privileged to be working in an industry like that you have the opportunity to work with so many great people doing everything they can to make the director's vision come alive. And I hope everyone kind of has that in their field, but I really experience it in mine.
Well, I'm sure you do, and watching the movie tonight to see John Hurt, who we've lost, and Harry Dean Stanton, they're the first to go in the movie, and it's kind of heartbreaking to watch that. But what do you have planned now for the new year? What is it besides Alien 5 that we all insist that you're just keeping it from us?
I think Neil Blomkamp has like 5 movies to do before he can even think about doing that. And I have to do these avatars. I'm trying not to plan anything. I just got back from Avatar Land, and it's so nice to be home in New York and living a normal life. I'm really grateful just to be on Earth.
That's the last question. When you see, you don't watch your movies. You just said that. You're not really watching them to do it, but you played Ripley 4 times. Is there a moment in either one of these, or all 4 of the movies, where you're playing her and it resonates for you? It's not me saying, what's the best scene you ever had playing this character, but the one that hit you inside and resonates for you?
That's a lovely question. I think for me, the heart of Ripley, I found it when I was doing, in Aliens, because no one believes her, and she's like this exile in this horrible modern, space community, working for a corporation who doesn't care about anyone. But it was when we find Newt on the planet and she and I become kind of a twosome within this world. It's so beautifully written. Jim really can pull on your heartstrings. And I think, and of course, Ripley had a daughter that she had left, which we discovered in the second one, and then it was cut out by Fox. But anyway, those scenes with this little girl who had experienced what she'd experienced in one, I felt that there were so many emotional layers in these scenes, and such a gift to an actor to be given something so complex and simple and beautiful to play. And I feel like that's where the whole of Ripley kind of ignited. So I think I had to wait for the second one, because the first one really is 10 Little Indians, and I'm the last one, and we did it with everything we had, but to really have it blossom, it took getting to the second one.
I get it. Well, I know I'm speaking for everybody here that we are all going to meet 10 years from now for the 50th anniversary. And we'll see. Thank you.